Financial opportunities in Asia was the subject of a workshop at the Asian Financial Forum 2013, and it included Anthony Nightingale, Non-Executive Director for Jardine Matheson Holdings, and thanks very much indeed for joining us right now. I believe that looking at the workshop that you were in, it seemed to be a mixture of two things. One is risk on the one hand, and then liberalization on the other. But is it a sort of balance between the two? We're looking forward to 2014, 15 and 16, where it comes to, I guess, the opportunities that you see.
Yeah, well, we were specifically discussing the subject of financial markets integration and cooperation. And one of the many reasons for that is actually to give corporates a better way of managing their risks in the region by broadening the sources of funds available when you want to raise money, and either in the form of bond issues or whether you want to do a derivative to swap from one currency into another. So we were talking how we can deepen that cooperation between Asian financial markets. On the broader subject of liberalization, I think there is good work to be done in the financial services field, but it's also important that we support the ongoing efforts that are being made in the region to develop free trade agreements and broaden the relationships in trading goods and services, which of course includes financial services, and also investment.
And then on the other hand, you've got the risk. What are the big risks that you see at the moment? Are they sort of geopolitical type of tensions, or are they, in fact, to do with the liberalization of trade itself?
I think there's always risks, and if we look at what could go wrong in 2013, which, by the way, my mainline assumption is that 2013 will be a pretty good year for Asia's economies. But of course, we need to think about what could go wrong, what are the unexpected things that could happen. I suppose those would include a setback in Europe, even though it's muddled through for a few years so far and probably will muddle through again this year, or somehow America, which seems to enjoy brinkmanship recently in its fiscal affairs, actually does come to some real impasse. But again, I don't think those are very likely. If we look specifically at risks in our region, I guess the one that we should be aware of, but very, very much hope it will not blow up into anything too troublesome, is the tension that has arisen and deepened recently between China and Japan, obviously focused on that island issue, the Diaoyu Islands, or Senkaku Islands as the Japanese say. Hopefully the common interest, particularly on the economic side, will stop that getting out of hand.
So would you say that where it comes to companies, one of the big problems may well be the different jurisdictions that there are in different countries in Asia, different countries and territories? Is that a real problem for companies right now?
I think more regulatory standardization and harmonization between the different financial markets in Asia would be very helpful. And indeed, standardization in general is useful. Let me give you a concrete example. At the moment, if you look at the documentation that's used for bond issues, for corporate bond issues around this region, there is no standard template, unlike the situation in Europe or North America, where they follow a very close standard. Obviously, there is some adaptation for local legal systems, but there's too much variety in our region. If we could standardize that, it would be to the benefit of issuers, either sovereign or corporate, and it would be to the interest of the investors in those instruments. And what that would result in is quicker access to market and cheaper fees.
Do you see that process actually going on, or do you think that actually much more needs to be done country to country and perhaps with international organizations involved in this process?
I think more does need to be done. I think we should admit that, and we should be happy about the fact that there's been some good progress in certain areas. There's been a number of initiatives to develop our Asian bond markets, and clearly that is a very important alternative source of funding from bank financing. But there are really a multiplicity of issues, and actually to address those, there is an idea which I introduced at the AFF, the Asian Financial Forum, just now, and that is to create a platform by which this will be discussed. And this idea originated in the APEC Business Advisory Council, or ABAC, of which I'm a long-term member. And the idea is to create a gathering, a forum, called the Asia Pacific Financial Forum, which would focus on issues like capital markets development, like regulation, like the deepening of bond markets, all of those practical issues. And it would gather as its members, people participating. It would gather people from government, including regulators. It would gather the participants on the user side, people like insurance companies, people like pension fund managers, banks, and it would also have some wise academics, and it would also include some of the regional and world financial institutions like the IMF or the ADB.